to begin with. Okay, let's look at some more stories, and let's look at some Pulpit and Pen. I'm briefly going to cover this. Why Joshua Harris's apostasy is good for purity culture. It's a mixture of I'm disappointed. I'm quite angry when I read stuff like this. But in the direction Pulpit and Pen are kind of going right now, it's a bit like, yeah, it's a bit like other websites I can think of. It just seems to be breaking. There's a way to deal with this. This is sad, okay? This is sad. Now, there are things we can learn from the movement and, some of the train wrecks from the New Calvinism movement, of course. And there's, I'm going to talk about our Scott Clark's article in a second. I agree with most of it. And I think there's something we can take away from it. I think we need to be careful how much we think we can take away from it. But we'll talk about that in a second. But this is a disgusting attitude to have. Why Joshua Harris's apostasy is good for purity culture. Now, again, I think a lot of people are kind of maybe fed up with Pulpit and Pen at this point. Just give you a little flavor of, they think it's a good thing. Well, they by J.D. Hall. And he said, the silver lining. So I'll just give you, so that I'm not taking him out of context. He says, if Rachel Held Evans weren't already in hell, oh, this is hard to read. Anyway, she'd be squealing in delight instead of torment. I don't know, brothers. I find this really hard to read, and I probably will stop in a second. I bring this up because I'm so fed up with the disgusting rubbish that they pump out. And people ask me time and time again, why do you have a problem with Pulpit and Pen? Because they'll write something like that. I know that Rachel Held Evans was a liberal. If I ever write something like that, I should never write again. And I should really question if I have any business being in any kind of ministry. Anyway. He said, our good friend Nadia Bolz-Weber couldn't be more excited about Harris's departure from Christian holiness. From far-stretching corners of evangelicalism, countless thousands spiked the football. I don't know what that means. For the news that purity had failed Joshua Harris. After much ado about nothing, the prince of the purity movement was divorcing his wife. It was all for naught in the narrative. Is this the right way to talk about somebody's divorce? A marriage has ended. I'm sorry. Didn't expect a bit like this. Maybe I'll stop reading this in a second, but we should never, ever have a cavalier attitude about this stuff. I think, what happens to me, right? I read enough of this stuff, and I get kind of, you get kind of used to it. But I hope by God's grace you never get your jollies out of it. This has been written in such a poor, horrible, nasty spirit. And I want to urge extreme caution when people talk about this stuff, and not to go, aha, you see, he was apostate all along. Ah, there you go. Okay. Have you ever seen someone write an art? Look, I could pick loads of things, and for about a couple of years, I've ignored a load of their articles saying, no, it's not worth it. Leave it alone, leave it alone, leave it alone. Can you imagine someone's apostatized, left the faith, left their marriage, and they're talking about it as if it's a good thing? Because why? Because it's just going to show there were frauds all along and it'll be good for the courtship movement. Yeah. JD goes on to write, the silver lining. Only a few days later, Harris denounced Christ altogether. The real threat to the purity culture was extinguished the moment that Harris made his denunciation of Christ public. Isn't that wonderful? Is that a Christ-like attitude? Is it? Seriously. If you want to read the rest of that for context, why Joshua Harris's apostasy is good for purity culture. No one's, by the way, no one's apostasy is good for the church, okay? We never say that, yay, you see that person who's a problem at the back of the church who never turned up? I'm glad he announces Christ. Sorry. Makes it worse that this is a live program. When this used to be just a podcast, well, not that long ago. Oh man. Didn't feel as real. People ask me why I have a problem with Pulpit and Pen, that kind of stuff, and they pump that stuff out all the time. I think it's getting gradually worse right now. And you know what? They've done so many reprehensible things lately. I could keep reading that, but it's just vile. It's just absolute trash. You know not what spirit you were of when you talk like that. I'm sorry. Like that stuff sounds like Steven Anderson. That's a step away from being like Steven Anderson. You need to repent. If anybody's here listening to this and thinks it's okay to rejoice over, I thought they were an apostate. Yay, they're gone, and now we know. I want Joshua Harris to know the Lord. I don't want any of these people to be lost or outside of Christ. I'm a recipient of mercy. I want other people, even if I have massive problems with their movement, I want them to know Christ. And how dare anyone rejoice over that? Anyway, apologies, people. I didn't think I would get that emotional about that, but there you go. Okay,